Hey guys, it's Steven from KR Motorsports again. Today we're going to do another unboxing video. This one is a fuel pressure regulator, but it's not your average style fuel pressure regulator. So the part number is here, 13301. If you guys have been watching, you know that our upcoming project is a 1968 Datsun Roadster, and that we are working on a carb to EFI conversion on it. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move into this. This is pretty simple here. How it works is that this looks like your normal fuel pressure regulator, right? Really nothing special here. We've got the inlet ports here, inlet/outlet ports, meaning that you can use any of these. You've got your vacuum fitting here, your adjustment here, and then your return here. Now, what makes this special is the fact that this fuel pressure regulator is actually designed to be used with both carbureted and EFI systems. Now, for those who did not watch the initial video on the fuel pump setup that we will be using, most carbureted setups are anywhere from 3 to 10 psi, while you have your EFI setups that are anywhere from 35 to 55 psi of pressure. Now, this one is preset for carbureted, meaning that it'll adjust anywhere from, I believe, 3 to 12 psi, I believe. However, when we do finally make the switch over to EFI, it actually comes with a little spring in here. So this spring here, you'll remove these 4 Allens. This top comes off. Be careful, there's a gasket in here. You'll swap into this spring, and this will actually allow us to run EFI pressures through this regulator, right? So the price on this, compared to other regulators, is a little bit on the steep side. This isn't the regulator that we're normally going to be recommending to people that come through our shop, but this one in this specific situation works out the best for us. So we plan to get the car running on the carbureted setup still, and when we do switch over to EFI, we'll be able to reuse this. So it's not a huge loss. So your average regulators for a carb system, for a good one for that matter, is about 75 bucks or so, and on an EFI setup, whether it's Aeromotive or Radium or anybody else, is a little bit more than that. These guys, again, they retail $202, I believe, is what they retail. But it is a really good simple setup. So these ports here are 3/8. So you'll have to get a, 3/8 to whatever fuel line you plan to run. For our specific setup, we're doing 6AN. Now, the way this is plumbed up is pretty simple. On a carbureted vehicle, it's actually kind of deadheaded. So what I mean by that is that, unlike an EFI setup, you will actually have fuel going in one side, one port, and then this side will actually run to the carbs, and then this will feed back. Or you can cap it off, depending on how it's set up on your carbureted carb. On an EFI setup, though, this is actually the return side of it. So you would have the fuel feed into the rail, and then this would go into the other end of the rail, and then this end would go back to the tank. The really cool thing about this, what I do like though, is that it's actually pretty simple to set up using dual fuel rails. So if you plan to run 2 fuel rails, you can just easily run a fitting off of each side to feed each rail. What I do not like about this though is that, if you've noticed, there is not a port for a fuel pressure gauge. I don't know why Aeromotive decided not to run that. I don't know if there was a design issue or whatever, but they didn't include it, which is really weird to me because the other lines of Aeromotives actually do have the gauge port in it. So keep in mind that if you do purchase this regulator and you decide to use it, that you will have to run a different gauge setup. And it's not the end of the world. You can run your normal liquid fuel gauge with a TN line, so it's not the end of the world. But it's just like, it's a really nice piece, it's all billet, and all they would have to do was just add a little fitting. Now, granted, I don't do any design, so I don't know if there's an issue with design here, perhaps, that does not allow for a gauge port, but I'm not really sure. Either way, it is a pretty solid setup. Comes with a very nice steel bracket here. I mean, this thing is pretty durable here. Like, you can't even flex it. I'm not a super tough guy, but that's pretty stout. You know, your normal Allen head screws all over the place, and it looks like a very simple, clean setup. Now, in another video, once we do start working on the Datsun, we're still amassing parts for it. We will install this, and we will do another video on that once it's installed. Again, I do want to reiterate that these fittings, unlike other regulators, is actually 3/8 NPT. So that is a little strange as far as a regulator goes, but you know, it's not strange as far as fittings go. It's easy to find 3/8 to 6AN or 8AN or whatever you need to choose. So do keep that in mind. And this does not come with anything else besides the regulator itself plus the spring. So you will have to buy the fittings of your choice, so keep that in mind.